Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here on this very, very special night. Before we do anything else, we want to thank the amazing folks here at the Missouri History Museum for their kindness and their generosity in helping to make this night possible. We also want to welcome our longtime colleague and our musical director for the night. Ladies and gentlemen, the very talented Tony Chambers and Serapis. And of course, we're all here to pay tribute to our guest of honor, Art Holliday. Art. Hang on, Art.
Wow.
All right, Art is retiring after 46 years at KSDK. Have a seat, Art. We're all gathered here tonight for what's supposed to be a lighthearted roast. I mentioned roast. But after all he's done at our TV station, I'm not sure how you roast Art Holliday. I mean, he's done so much. He's been a sportscaster, a newscaster, in management. Then again, I really haven't given it much thought because every time I started to think about the roast, I got distracted by the glare off his scalp.
Oh, boom!
By the way, there will be speeches tonight and applause. I'm not really sure what the big deal is. I mean, I just celebrated my 40th anniversary at KSDK, and thank you. Yeah, the Missouri History Museum never called. All I got was a memo from the boss that said, get back to work. But then I realized something. Who makes the decision to put on a big event like this? Management. And you know who went into management? Yeah, Art was one of the most respected anchors in the business, and then he went to the dark side. He went from telling stories to killing stories in budget meetings. But I do have something that Art will never have: gray hair. It's actually been really nice to have Art around these past few years because he's the only one at the station who's older than me, and he is old. You know, in television news, we talk a lot about ratings. Recently, I asked Art if he'd seen the latest numbers, and he said, yeah, 130/80. And we all know that Art is probably best known for his partnership with Jennifer Blome on Today in St. Louis. They were together for 22 years. Do you know how hard it is to last 22 years in the morning on TV? That's 154 years in dog years. Their on-air partnership was like Regis and Kathy Lee if Regis was quieter, balder, and way more into Chuck Berry. They started so long ago, they once did a story asking, what is email and is it dangerous? And if you've seen the KSDK blooper tapes, we all know this, Art was the only anchor in America who needed a wake-up call during a wake-up show. One thing you may not know is that Art can be a very private guy. He's professional, except when he's on the phone. When Art gets a call, suddenly he turns into a human megaphone. You can hear him down the hall, through the walls, even a fire door. So when he became news director and started negotiating salaries, we thought, great, finally a guy who respects confidentiality. Nope. Thanks to Art, we all know what all the new reporters are being paid. But seriously, for 46 years, Art has been a steady hand, a trusted voice, and the kind of colleague we'd all want. He's been a role model, a mentor, a leader, and somehow, through it all, a really good friend. And there's a reason we're all here tonight. It's because Art didn't just make it a career, he made a difference. So let's roll the tape.
I grew up in St. Charles. I was the youngest of three brothers. I often tell people I wasn't the first person in my family to be on television because my oldest brother, Austin, used to work for Ken Bender, a car dealership in St. Charles, and he did television commercials. I remember a 6th grade teacher saying in the middle of the class that I could be whatever I wanted to be. Once I got into the journalism school and started doing some of the work, it felt like this is where I was meant to be. I had an instructor named Lee Wilson who was in charge of KOMU at the time. I had to ask him about getting an internship one summer. Well, while I have this man's attention, I asked him the money question. Do you think I made the right choice in terms of careers? He said, oh no, I think you've got a lot of talent. That's why I'm giving you these opportunities. Just keep doing the work and you'll be fine. Well, I mean, looking back, that was one of those tipping points, you know, one of those forks in the road. And that gave me so much confidence that, you know, it just kind of propelled me on through graduation and then, you know, getting my first job in Oklahoma City. No one who's successful makes it on their own. They always had somebody that stepped up and either gave them advice or mentored them or taught them or whatever. And I'm no different. Me and one of my classmates traveled on the road with the Mizzou football team to Stillwater, Oklahoma. They were playing Oklahoma State. And we're in the press box. And it's maybe 40 minutes before game time. And all of a sudden, Keith Jackson from ABC Sports is walking towards us. And we're kind of nudging each other like, what do we do? Do we say anything? So we went up and introduced ourselves and told him that we were, you know, aspiring sportscasters at the University of Missouri. He stood there and took the time to chat with us and give us the benefit of a lot of the things that he had gone through. And years later, I ran into Keith Jackson again. And I tried to explain to him what that moment, that brief encounter meant. That's why I go out of my way to help young, aspiring broadcasters, because someone took the time to help me. Jennifer and I started working here the same year, 1979. She was doing weekend weather, I was doing weekend sports. And so in 1989, when I got called to the general manager's office and he says, we're gonna make some changes on our morning show, and I think you'd make a good co-anchor for Jennifer Blome. And I was afraid to say no. You know, I wasn't looking to leave sports. I loved being a sportscaster.
39 years later, the Billikens would love to duplicate that feat. We're gonna pitch it back to the studio. I'll be back later on in sports, a little drier.
But I took a leap of faith.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Blome.
And I'm Art Holliday.
In school, they separate the class clowns, but here they sat us right next to each other and pointed a camera at us. And the audience gave us permission to be ourselves.
Most tourists head to Egypt to see its stuff.
Let's got through the weather.
Okay.
And let me get this. Oh, okay, Art, I want you to lay back and relax.
Okay, no
Here we go.
We were just trying to be serious today.
We had what every anchor team strives for, and that's chemistry.
Oh, you make it look like so much fun, Art.
It wasn't manufactured, it wasn't planned. It was just a real blast to have her as an on-air partner. 3, 2, meet the Froneberger family. I take a lot of pride in the fact that I've been asked to reinvent myself multiple times here, and I've done it. After 22 years, I'm asked to be a general assignment reporter, something I'd never done in my career. Usually that's the way you start, and then you work up to anchor. You know, my career was kind of stuck in reverse. And then ultimately, I went from general assignment to our storytelling unit, which feels like a gift because these are all the stories I've been pitching forever. I get to find the most interesting characters and, so yeah, if I continue to do that, it may take you a while to get rid of me.
And now that we've seen something nice, let's get back to what we came here for. Our first speaker tonight is the man who helped bring Art Holliday to KSDK. So if you're looking for someone to blame, it's Ron Jacober. Back in 1979, Ron and his colleague Jay Randolph saw something special in a young Art Holliday and decided to hire him. Clearly, background checks are not a thing yet. Ron spent 16 years at KSDK before moving on to KMOX. He's one of the most respected voices in St. Louis sports. He's a broadcasting legend, a storyteller, and apparently a pretty good talent scout. Please welcome to the stage the original Holiday enabler, Ron Jacober.
Obviously, Art is not the guy they invented shampoo for. I was with Art that day, all those years ago when he walked into Channel 5. Jay Randolph and I were running the sports department, but Jay was gone half the time. Hell, he was gallivanting around the country doing Cardinals, doing NBC sports, and I wound up working weeks without days off. So we hired Art. He was from St. Charles, but was working in Oklahoma City at the time. One of his first assignments was a live shot during a sportscast in a newscast, and he totally screwed it up. I mean, he made such a mess out of it. Jay said to me, I don't know, you think we should give him another chance? I said, well, hell, we hired him. We have to, I think. I read one time that a winner was a loser who tried one more time. And Art tried many more times, and he's a winner, of course. When Art came, the general manager at Channel 5 was a man named Bill Bolster. Folks have been around a long time remember Bill Bolster. Some of us called him a hog farmer from Iowa. That wasn't a compliment, in case you're wondering. Recently, I talked to Jay, who's still doing okay. Health-wise is not great, but he said, Bolster really liked Art. But he didn't like me. He fired my ass because I wouldn't do what Zipper Zeppa was doing on Channel 2. And if any of you remember Zipper Zeppa, the Zippos and all that stuff, Bolster wanted me to be a clown. And I said no. He said, get the hell out of here then. So after 16, 17 years, he fired me. Art, I had a dream the other night that if the situation was reversed, Bolster liked me and fired you. That means tonight I could be the news director retiring. And Art, you would be roasting me today. I wonder what you'd say to me. I know that was a strange dream, but you would have enjoyed KMOX for a number of years. By the way, just for the record, Bolster eventually got fired too. Art was not one for the drama in his role as an anchor. He could make a breaking news story sound like a bedtime story. And everybody lived happily ever after. Art as a news director was like putting a cat in charge of a dog show. There was a lot of chaos. They say behind every great news story is a great news director. So what does that make Art? Probably just the guy holding the coffee while everybody else runs around like they know what they're doing. And that's what he orchestrated. So some of the people in the newsroom say Art is as exciting as weekend doing laundry. I heard he likes to cook. But he's such a poor cook, the smoke alarms cheer when he leaves the kitchen. Well, my wife Lois said, please don't say anything bad about Art. He was always so nice and pleasant to me. I really, really, really like him. So I always do what my wife tells me to do. So Art has been a good friend, a wonderful, respected broadcaster who left his indelible mark on St. Louis broadcast history. It'll be difficult to enjoy and imagine Channel 5, which used to be KSD TV, by the way, when we went to work there. KSDK without Art as a part of it, it's hard to imagine. So Art, I hope your retirement will be rewarding with many, many joyful days of doing things that make you happy. May God bless you and with good health and happy years.
Thanks, Ron. Our next speaker knows Art Holliday about as well as anyone, mostly because they shared a lot of early mornings together on Today in St. Louis. Scott Connell is our chief meteorologist, but for years, he was the guy delivering the forecast right between Art and Jennifer. Scott was the calm in that storm. He's smart, steady, and probably the only person who could get Art to care about a cold front. Please welcome one of the nicest guys in the building, unless there's severe weather, Scott Connell.
All right, so when I started at Channel 5, I had a full head of hair. So did he. What's in the water at 1000 Market Street? So I'll preface this by saying when you worked today in St. Louis, you get up in the middle of the night when most people are sleeping. So you're sleep deprived, you're not totally coherent. And that included all of us behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. And one morning, you know, in this not so coherent mode that we all were operating in, Art found that he was in need of gasoline on his way into work. A little low on the gas pump. So he stops at the gas station. Apparently, he got into an argument with the gas pump, and the fuel pump won. Now, as you saw in the pictures, and as you see tonight, Art is a sharp-dressed man. He is, we always said, St. Louis's best-dressed man. That morning, St. Louis's best-dressed man smelled like a combination of Fast and Furious meeting Neiman Marcus. His cologne was Eau de Premium unleaded. We weren't sure if we should call OSHA or NASCAR. So, as a commemorative gift, Art, I have here a gas can with a no-spill spout so that you don't come home to Linda smelling like the head of Exxon Mobil. Thank you for all the laughter, all the memories, all the fun that we had over the years, and now you can continue to live the dream.
Our next speaker is someone I know very well, mostly because I sit next to her every night at 5 and 10, and yet she still shows up for work. Kelly Jackson is my co-anchor, but long before she was stuck with me, long before Kelly was stuck with me, she worked alongside Art. Kelly is sharp, classy, somehow managed to smile, even when Art was mansplaining jazz to her. So please welcome the talented, the graceful, and the deeply patient Kelly Jackson.
Gotta put on my glasses for this. Art Holliday, I thought, if I'm gonna be throwing you some shade, I'm gonna do it through song. Don't worry, it's all love, mostly. But seriously, congratulations on an extraordinary, legendary career. Now, boys, hit it. I'm not a singer, just so you know. Thanks for the memories. You started out in sports back when dinosaurs roamed the courts, then moved to early morning news and oh, a brief on-air snooze. Still we thank you, we do. Thanks for the memories. You stayed long enough to collect a ton of stuff. Even scored an office twice the size of the bosses. And every photo on the wall, not paintings of art, just photos of art, wall to wall. And we thank you for your love for you. Thanks for the memories. Now Linda gets her full-time boo. She's stuck at home with you. Time to perfect your TikTok moves or even hit the fairways too. And maybe wrap up that 20-year-old doc. It's almost as old as Woodstock. We thank you, we do. Thanks for the memories. You always dress with so much class, but now it's time to haul some. You weren't even booted out. That's the power of your clout. So we thank you, we do. I have a prop, y'all. Thanks for the memories. Art never learned to use his inside voice. We'd turn him down if we had the choice. Every time he's on the phone, it sounds just like a megaphone. We all hear you, Art. Your voice could crack a stone. We thank you, but less is more, it's true. Is my final verse, I promise. Thanks for the memories. Now it's time to say goodbye. 5 will always be on your side. You'll always have a home, but you gotta give up your badge and phone. Everybody, we thank you. We do.
You're so wrong.
Some people get a gold watch, you got that. Some other folks wanted to say something about Art, so let's roll the tape.
When I first got to St. Louis, I was a fish out of water. I didn't know anyone. And Art came up to me, he introduced himself, gave me the name of a really good barber, and he told me, he said, if you need anything, you contact me. And it was obvious to me that he meant it. And 26 years later, I'm proud to say that he's a trusted friend and mentor. And when you think about this business, television news, it's tough. And for someone to not only survive, but excel as a television news anchor before making that transition into management, and to do that for almost 50 years, that's absolutely extraordinary.
And I heard or read that Art has become news director here, and it's like, so I called him up to say congratulations and whatever, and he was telling me the story. He said, I don't think he ever saw himself being like the news director person, right? And so he said he was talking with him about the opportunity and whatever, and they just said, well, there'll be meetings you have to go to. And he said, I'm really not a meeting guy. I don't want to do meetings. And they said, that's non-negotiable. And Art was like, well, okay.
The other thing about Art is he's an excellent writer. And he would write some of the most hysterical parodies. And we'd put them up on the board and just sit up there and cry laugh about anything. He really is so creative. And you wouldn't know that, meeting him for the first time. But he has a great sense of humor. And
I mean, people who've stayed in, the TV newsrooms that long.
Good people last. He's a good one. He is a great one.
She is one of the most respected anchors in St. Louis history, and also the only one classy enough to leave local news and still have good posture. Karen Foss is so beloved that people stop her on the street, which is very impressive considering she now lives in New Mexico. Yet she flew all the way back here to St. Louis just to roast Art Holliday. That's either friendship or unresolved workplace tension. Please welcome the iconic, the elegant Karen Foss.
When I read that Art Holliday was retiring from KSDK, I heard all these things. This venerated newsman, the generous mentor to younger journalists, bringing them along. And I'm thinking, oh, you don't know, do you? Because I'm part of that class of 79, too. And I know the real Art Holliday, the original Art Holliday. And I'm here to tell you, because I don't want this myth to persist any longer. Now, when Art wandered into the KSDK newsroom about 50 years ago, this was the domain of guys like John Auble, Chris Condon, and I would say those subscribed to the school, may they rest in peace, the Colombo School of Fashion. Now, for you younger people, you have to look up Colombo. But suffice it to say, wrinkled, rumpled, evidence of last week's lunch on their lapel. And they wore sport coats back in those days, and even ties sometimes. And in waltzes this kid. I mean, the callow youth. And he's tall, he's fit, he's lean. Some might say skinny. But he looks like he slipped off the pages of GQ magazine. And the reaction was, I would say, mixed. Some of the old timers were a little skeptical. I think most of the women appreciated the improvement in the view. Next, we found out Art Holliday's smart. At least he's smart enough. He's smart enough for television. And he's smart enough to marry a woman much smarter. Thank you, Linda. And then he has this daughter, Taylor. She's smarter and more beautiful. Now, how does Art Holliday have a daughter like Taylor? Well, Linda, of course. Exhibit 1. Now, this business with the smart enough guys marrying much smarter women, Mike Bush knows about this, right? I knew you'd back me up on that. Now, I'm totally ignorant about sports, I confess, but I'm a hometown booster. If you tell me the St. Louis Mixmasters are playing the Tiddlywinks tournament, I'm there cheering them on. And I can follow most of it. I mean, I know the big numbers on the scoreboard, that's the score, right? But all those little numbers, right over my head. But when Art Holliday would do a report, I wanted to watch because his writing was so good. He was such a great storyteller that no matter what the subject, it could be interesting, it might be inspirational, it might be hysterically funny, but he could do it so well. And if I wasn't there and didn't see his reports air, I'd go back and look at them. Because even if I didn't know anything about sports, I thought I could learn something from this guy. He was just that good. And then next, he turns up anchoring Today in St. Louis, or TISL as we know it in the building, with Jennifer Blome. And these two virtually invented morning television news in St. Louis. They were a juggernaut. Morning TV was reruns and lame game shows until they got going. And then it became a very coveted advertising spot. And we know nothing spells success in TV like money. So, and they brought it to the morning TV. And I know there were high-priced consultants all around wondering, what makes this work? And it was very simple what made it work. It was Art and Jennifer. It was their personalities, their charm, their rapport, and you can't duplicate that. So they owned that time slot. They transformed morning TV in St. Louis. Now, there are some who say that Jennifer carried Art during all those years. You've probably seen the video blooper of Art falling asleep on the set. So I'll leave you to judge. I was never up early enough to see their show anyway. To me, it was just a rerun of what Mike and I'd had at 10 o'clock the night before. Next, Art and Jennifer are reunited on radio at KTRS, and they invited me to be their guest, and I was very pleased. And Art interviewed me. I thought it was an interview. Now I'm thinking he had ulterior motive, because he asked me how I knew when it was time to hang it up, to leave TV news, and then later a corporate job I liked very much. And I said I had so much I wanted to do. I had so many interests. I wanted to write. I wanted to paint. I wanted to travel. I wanted to spend more time with my grandkids. And I was looking at the clock, and it was ticking, and I was running out of time, and I needed to get moving. And that's what I told Art. And then he asked me what I thought was the secret to a successful retirement. Because we all know people who walk away and then regret it. They find themselves very empty without this professional identity they've had for all these years. And I told him what I've told many people, and I think it's very important, that you have to retire to something. You can't just retire from the alarm clock and the commute and the aggravating boss and the annoying coworkers, all those things that you think you want to get away from. You've got to have intention about what you're going to do next, what you want to do, what that life is after you quit. And I'm not worried about Art, not one bit. Here's a guy with so many talents. He's a documentarian, he's a filmmaker, he's a great writer, he's now a photographer. So Art will be just fine. And Art, all I can say to you is congratulations on a remarkable career, and thank you for all you've done for St. Louis, and bravo. Good job.
Try following that, Kim. Our next speaker is one of the few people who knows exactly how to tell Art that his 3-minute and 30-second sportscast needs to be cut by 45 seconds. Kim Hibbs was once Art's sports producer, which means he spent his days writing highlights and his nights wondering if there was more to life. Spoiler alert, there was. Kim got out of television and into the construction business. So if this roast goes too long, he can probably build us all a guest house. Please welcome the man who escaped TV with his sanity, Kim Hibbs.
How's it going, Art?
Just fine, Kim.
I've actually been looking forward to this. Does this thing go up anymore? I do have, I was the one that would be cutting his time. Don't you remember? I was always asking for more time when I was a reporter at the station.
I do remember.
So, Sonia, if I go more than 4 minutes, wherever you are, I apologize for it. I almost said no. Sonia called me up or sent me a text and said, would you like to do this great roast? And I said, no, I'm not going to roast my good friend Art Holliday. Then Linda called me. She talked me into it. Can you imagine that? So I had the pleasure of knowing Art for 40 some years now, and so I've known him inside the building and outside the building, so I have a little bit of extra insight here. But yeah, our friendship started back in the mid-'80s when I was his sports producer, but we really started our friendship even before we got into the building, because we always used to go to Tillis Park, have a rousing game of tennis, then we would go to his swimming pool, then we would have lunch, and then we would finally work our way into the building where, yeah, we had to work and produce the sports. And Linda, I apologize now for always leaving the bathroom in a mess and eating all your food and everything that goes along with it, but it was a lot of fun. So really our mornings was almost like an old buddies movie, but whenever we got into the station, he always looked really good. I was always hot and tired after playing tennis and swimming. He always looked great. Everybody, several people have mentioned how great Art always looked. He always had the right tie, the right sport coat, the right everything on. You would never know that he had been out. But I first asked him, "Are you any good at sports?" Because I didn't want to get myself in trouble by playing somebody that was going to be much better than me. And he said, "Oh, I'm okay." I later learned that I believe your nickname in high school when you were a quarterback was String Bean or something like that, because you were really tall and lanky. And I thought to myself, how can I be beat by someone with that nickname? Well, he was pretty darn good, and he beat me over and over and over and over. Then we tried basketball, media days on Tuesdays at SLU. Remember that? Yeah, we would get together, and he was pretty good at basketball too. Then later in life, I learned he picked up golf. He was good at golf. So, you know, not only is he really good in the newsroom, he's really good as an athlete as well. But so over time, our friendship developed, and I made the best decision of my life in 1988 when I asked Art to get to be the best man at my wedding. Oh, wait a minute, Jan, sorry about that. The second best decision in my life when I asked Art to be the best man at my wedding.
Good recovery.
He said yes. So did Jan, in case you're wondering. She's right there. But this is when I really started to realize what a great family man he was, because Taylor had been born a couple years before, and I could see exactly what Taylor meant to Art. So we asked Taylor to be the flower girl in our wedding, and my nephew Jordan, who was 3, Taylor was 2, was going to be the ring bearer. It was the cutest thing in the world, because when Taylor started to come down the aisle, she saw Art at the front of the altar, and she just took off for him, just like an Olympic sprinter. And that's when everybody credits Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, for coming up with the term "girl dad." Started right there. And to this day, Art continues to really care for both Linda and Taylor. You can learn a lot from that. So we were always a really good pair, because in the 90s, when I did leave Channel 5 for the first time after being a sports producer, we started a production company. Art was the idea man, and I was the bring Art back to earth man. He had more ideas and tried to do more things. It was really incredible, but he was very talented. We did some really cool shows, didn't we? We did nationally syndicated college football shows, college basketball shows. He's on the set with guys like Bobby Bowden and Lou Holtz and Bobby Knight and you know, doing all these interviews, and he acted like he belonged there, because he did. I mean, he stayed local, but you know what? He easily could have gone national. He just was really good at it. And one of the things I also learned out of, I think Karen just mentioned this, he really wants to be a mentor to young people in this industry, and he's really good at it. One of his ideas, and it was really a good one, I'll give him credit for it, is he wanted to do a sportscasters camp. So he invited his good friends that included, Mike Claiborne is here somewhere. Mike Claiborne was here, but Bob Costas, Joe Buck, just to name a few, right? Name dropping now? Well, that's because of this guy right here. So he invited a few of his friends to help out with the sportscasting camp, which we did for several years. And it was a really good success, but I learned how much it meant to him to mentor young people in the industry. And it's true. I mean, he continues it today. I know at the newsroom, we talk all the time about, what do you enjoy most about your job? And he says, I really enjoy, you know, helping people grow in this industry. You know, one Saturday afternoon, we're sitting around, and I don't even remember what the heck year it was. We're sitting around, and his phone rings. He takes the phone call and says, sure, we'll be over soon. You remember that? Bob Costas called you up and said, hey, come on over. Let's play some pickup basketball. I mean, only Mike Bush is going to be able to have something like that happen. It was unbelievable. So we go over to Bob Costas' house in the middle of his driveway in Town and Country and start playing basketball. Anyway, so then when I get to Channel 5 back in 1999, I'm a reporter, fill-in anchor. I was moved to the Tissel Show at some point. Really enjoyed my time with Art and Scott and Jennifer. Had a great time. But it got so old. I would get out there and meet people, and they would come up to me when I'm eating dinner, and they would always talk about art. Art this, art that. Art's wonderful. I would say, yeah, he is. Now can I finish my dinner? They always talked about how friendly he was, how well dressed he was, and how they loved it when he started to laugh. He laughed uncontrollably. So that was, he kind of turned the table on me though. One morning, I was doing a story that involved the Town and Country Police Department. And you know how important reporter participation is, right? So somehow, some way, I talked the police officers into tasing me. Now wait a minute now. It was controlled, so I wasn't going to get hurt. But anyway, so I do the story. I'm on the set. It airs at 5. It airs again at 6. We're on the set, and lo and behold, I didn't know that this one here told the producer to take the part where they actually tased me, and I go, ah, and fall forward, and they looped it together. And so for like 30 seconds, we see me in agony and falling, and he's over there cracking up over it. So that's pretty much when I decided television was no longer for me, and Jan and I decided that we were going to start building homes. We've had a great time with that. Art and I and Linda would occasionally talk about, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you built me a home or built us a home? That'd be a lot of fun. I humored him, sure, it's gonna be great, let's do it someday. And all of a sudden he comes to me and says, I have a lot. I wanna build a home. So I'm like, okay, great. So we broke rule number 1, never build a home or go into business with friends and family, right? Well, we did it, but it ended well, didn't it?
It ended very well.
It ended very well. Well, this is my side of the story. Every day I used to get an email, a text, a phone call from the idea man, right? He wanted to do this, he wanted to do that, he wanted to add this, he wanted to add that. And I kept saying, Art, that's great. Great ideas, lots of money. I finally had to go to Linda and say, Linda, would you put a stop to this? She did. We had a great experience. They have a beautiful home. It was a lot of fun. The one thing that I regret from that whole experience, though, is that I allowed him to work with our audio-video contractor without us. I mean, if you take a look at his office right now, it looks like the control room at NASA before they're about to launch a rocket. I bet you anything, his basement has more audio-video equipment in it than the new KSDK studio is going to have. It is unbelievable. And here's my one regret. It's not that he did it. My regret is we allowed him to deal with our audio-video contractor without us, which meant we didn't get a builder's fee. Jan and I would be retired right now if we hadn't done that. I'm never going to make that mistake again. So anyway, have I gone over 4 minutes, Sonia? Wrap it up. Yeah, I'm getting the wrap. There you go. Art, you're a true broadcast legend. You're a tennis hustler. You're a pool owner extraordinaire. You're a businessman, an idea man, a mentor, a prankster, a custom client, and you're one heck of a good friend. I wish you nothing but the best in retirement. Whatever Karen said a couple of minutes ago, I echo it. I know you. You're going to be extremely successful, and thank you for allowing me to be part of the evening, and good luck.
Well, that was very, very nice. Kim, when you get home, look in the dictionary and look up the word roast. We're doing a tribute to him later. Our next speaker is also living proof that there is life after TV. Heidi Glaus spent years as a reporter on Today in St. Louis. I mean, she worked very closely with Art and somehow never filed a formal complaint. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Heidi.
You guys, I am so happy and honored to be here and be a part of this fantastic night. After all these years and all of your accomplishments, I do feel like we should simply raise a glass and toast you. But it is a roast, and I'm a rule follower. He started at Channel 5 in 1979. I was 6. Technology meant a Sony Walkman and compact disc. It's when people would gather around a TV to watch Dallas and The Love Boat. But let's be honest, there was no chemistry like Art and Jennifer. You know, I had the privilege of waking up at 2 a.m. and running teleprompter for Art and Jennifer for a while. And I will say there were times where I wondered, am I going too slow? Or did Art just take another nap? What I do know is that Art and Jennifer made me better, and that's not just on TV, that's as a person. You know, there are so many things you can say about Art Holliday, not necessarily about talent, but that he's tall, so tall that I spent 5 years of my life standing on boxes and sitting on phone books. But I loved every single second of my time with Art and Jennifer. It was very short in comparison to their fantastic 22 years, and here they are once again.
He was weekend sports and I was weekend weather. Did we talk? No. I sat over in the little weather seat and saw this sports guy get upset because the highlights didn't match his copy. And I'm thinking 25 years old, like, who cares? What's the big deal? So I was always kind of afraid of him. But then the first day that Art worked on Today in St. Louis, he comes hopping in with
a technical difficulty? That never happens at Channel 5, right?
You need to stay close. Art,
You lied to me.
I did not lie. You are going to love retirement because you can change your plans at the last minute. It gives you the gift of time, and as we all move through time, it becomes evident how precious it is. Now, I will say one thing. We've heard this before, but Art has always, always had an eye for young, aspiring on-air talent. And my good friend, and who I'd like to call my TV daughter, Heidi Glaus, was probably the first victim. And I joined in. And we just thought, oh, she's so wonderful. We want her to take over Today in St. Louis. Heidi was a good sport. It was like putting her in a straitjacket with helmet head tied to the desk. And she's like, I don't really like this. But she was in the news department for years, did a wonderful job. And then it was so great to see her blossom as a host and storyteller for Show Me St. Louis. And she continues to blossom on the Heidi Glaus Show on KTRS Radio. You were great, and it was a pleasure mentoring you along with Art.
Well, what I would like you to explain, and of course I love you, and I love you, and we could really do a roast after midnight, but it's TV time. Would you explain to everybody how that first time that you guys started laughing, you honestly thought that was the end?
We did. We were so scared. I don't know how we lost control, but the set was separate from the newsroom. So Art and I are like looking behind the curtain saying, are we getting fired, man? And then our shift was over, so on the way out, this was so long ago, we had a switchboard operator who took phone calls. And we're like, Mary, she's like, come over here. These phone calls are unbelievable. And we're like, damn, it was gonna be so much fun. And Mary says, Art, 5 callers, you're not such a stick in the mud. Jennifer, next 5, you're not a snob after all. So we sighed a big sigh of relief and thought, well, okay, as long as it's not during an inappropriate story, maybe we can be ourselves.
Now, you were also kind of blamed for Art not liking dogs.
Are you still mad at me about this? Are you? All right, speak later. No, oh, this is power, baby. Shut. Are you all familiar with Sammy Stars? Anybody here adopt a dog from Sammy Stars? All right. So Art was mad at me because viewers got the impression from me that he did not like dogs. We got into therapy about it. As it turns out, Art did not like dogs in costume. Okay, I'll give him that. But the other thing he always said was, why do y'all talk to your dogs? Oh! So there was that.
Yes. And then, speaking of babies, he was kind of a baby about the cold.
He was ultra sensitive to the cold. So we did the Thanksgiving Day parade. I don't know if anybody ever saw that, but honestly, we're up on a bleacher and Art would bring an electric blanket and electric socks. You know, I'm the opposite, so I'm hot. And he doesn't drink coffee, and he's always complaining about it. So one year, I brought him hot chocolate. I'm a cook. Homemade hot chocolate. Melt the chocolate, little peppermint, schnapps. And he did a much better job. And the next year he's like, hey, bring some of that peppermint hot chocolate, would you? 5 years running. You did a great job.
And then there's that movie. What's that movie about an anchor man?
Is it true you walked out of the movie Anchorman? Yes, you did. Who walks out of the movie Anchorman when he is an anchorman? It might have hit too close to the bone.
Okay, but the funniest thing that Art ever told you.
He didn't tell just me. The most ridiculous thing Art Holliday ever said to me. Everybody see me? Can you see me? With a straight face, which I cannot do, but I'll give you the quote. I'm not really comfortable being the center of attention. Thank you, everyone. Good luck, Art. You're gonna love it.
And just so you know, these were left at KTRS, not in the hallway, but in Art's office. So if anyone wants a going away present, or Art, if you want to put them in your bedroom, I'm sure Linda doesn't care.
Love you.
Love you too.
I think we got you, didn't we?
Yeah.
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 More tributes. Roll the tape.
Art really deserves, his next chapter. He's, you start with a good person. You add some talent, some perseverance, some courage to try new things, and a little bit of luck, and pretty soon you've got a stellar career. And I think that's a good equation for Art Holliday.
We were interview Rusty Wallace. And, Rusty was a hometown boy, and he was just really getting started in NASCAR racing, making a name for himself. And he's like, hey, I can take you out on the track, looking at me. And Art's like, yeah, that'd be great. And I'm like, okay. And I go and I look in the car. There's like no seat in the car. And I would have held on for dear life, except there was really nothing to hold on to. I'm just sitting like this, trying not to fall in his lap. And I kept thinking the whole time, there's nothing usable. I just felt like I didn't really do that justice, but he was able to take the time and to find something to put in there, not only for him, but I think kind of for me too, that made me feel better, so that it became a great experience because of how crazy it was, and that he made it better. And so I always appreciated Art for the way he took care of his coworkers, for his attention to detail, how he wanted to put stories together. And he knew what we were trying to do because he was a photographer.
He has a commanding voice. You know, when Art speaks, you will listen. And we had to have a discussion about race in the newsroom. And he was the first person to step up to the plate. I always thought he was a leader, and there he was leading all those many years ago.
He should cherish his memories, and I'm sure he will, but he and I were both so lucky to have worked here for all that time, and I mean all that time, but, you know, in such an exciting news gathering organization, you know, so he should cherish that. And the other thing I would say, you know, I really wish him in his retirement such good health and peace of mind.
Our next speaker is the woman who made one of the boldest decisions in KSDK history. She looked at Art Holliday, trusted anchor, respected journalist, smooth on camera, and she said, you know, I think this guy should be doing budgets. Carol Fowler was our director of content, and she's the one who came up with the idea of moving Art into management. A daring move, but somehow it worked. Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Fowler.
Oh my gosh. I'm at the end of the program. Who do I have to blame for that? Unlike everybody else you've heard from tonight, I got to know Art and we became friends relatively late in both of our careers. I moved from Chicago, and as Mike mentioned, I became director of content at KSDK. This was in 2019. And I met Art as part of meetings that I took when I first arrived to get to know all of the employees. And suffice it to say that Art stood out, literally, the tallest person in the newsroom for sure, no hair, as we have documented. So somewhat unusual for TV. But what made the biggest impression on me was the fact that Art was just so easy to talk to. We bonded, both being graduates of the University of Missouri School of Journalism.
That's right.
And he had so many stories. I was fascinated by a career journey that took him so many twists and turns. At KSDK alone, as we've heard, he went from sports to general assignment, to mornings, to producing, then to reporting in the specials unit. It was clear to me, yes, he was a master of reinvention, and a little crazy to have said, yes, I'll do that, so many times over 4 decades. His time on the morning news with Jennifer was legendary, as we've heard. And the month I arrived in St. Louis, he made something called the A-list in St. Louis Magazine for being the best anchor in the market. That's great, right? The only problem is he hadn't been on air at KSDK, at the anchor desk, in many, many years. But as Art would say, why let the facts stand in the way of a good story? So given that, I was a little surprised to learn that he was working mornings, hosting a radio show with Jennifer. And he was working part-time at KSDK, turning stories, but had been injured, so he really couldn't pick up a camera. I knew he could give back more, and he felt like he could give back more, but we really weren't sure what that would look like. In a few months, he moved back on air to co-anchor the 4 o'clock news with Kay Quinn. And thank you, Kay, for graciously welcoming Art back. But I have to say his most valuable contribution was yet to come. But what was that going to be?
Well, two of the most consequential events of all of our lifetimes happened: the COVID epidemic and the murder of George Floyd. Our newsroom needed a leader who was a unifier, who had a cool head, who knew St. Louis and its people better than I ever could. I'll never forget calling up Art on the phone one day and asking him if he would consider going into management. He was truly shocked at the question, but I could tell it really made the wheels start turning in his head. And like a good reporter, he asked me all these important questions like, what do managers do on their days off? Are they bothered? Will I still get breaks for lunch? He really asked that. I gave Art the unvarnished truth of what being a manager really is. Like a good husband, he needed to talk to his wife, Linda, and then he would call me back. That led to more conversations. And then one day, about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, you know, Carol, I don't think being a news director is going to work out because I don't like meetings. He really said that. Well, Art took the job anyway and has had more than his fair share of on-call weekends and Zoom calls and everything that goes with it. And I have to say, Art, you have made me wiser. You've made us laugh. You've delivered some of the best speeches ever at the work anniversary of our colleagues at KSDK. But most of all, I want to thank you for always being there with me, for me, and for giving me your honest opinion, whether I wanted it or not.
And once again, let's roll the tape.
Dr. King's iconic speech 50 years ago, he has long been regarded as our most famous dreamer. So it's somehow fitting that two local dreamers are trying to revitalize Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Well, I guess you could say a star-studded cast will be on hand tonight at Busch Stadium for tonight's home opener. Because of the government shutdown, the arch remains closed. Now, the New York-based World Monument Fund has placed our Gateway Arch on the most endangered monuments list. Well, there's two pretty good reasons why the Washington Bullets are favored to win their second straight NBA championship. Most of the statues in the new sculpture garden are old favorites from the St. Louis Art Museum, like Venus Victorious, part of the museum's collection since 1955. Well, you'd have thought these guys were getting paid by the hour the way they stretched this game out, Tom. Call it the game no one wanted to win. Sports physicals to immunizations to counseling, the spot seems to be making an impact at Jennings High School. St. Louis University economics professor Dr. Jack Strauss last year wrote this paper, The Economic Impact of Immigration on St. Louis. After studying more than a century of race commissions in the United States, Dr. Lupo says the biggest question for the St. Louis region is who is going to hold government accountable for implementing Ferguson Commission recommendations. With this item just into the News Channel 5 newsroom, several area communities on both sides of the river will be able to hire new police officers as part of last year's crime bill. Whitey Herzog, is there enough time for Frank Viola to make that much of an impact for the Mets? Although Liam's not quite 2 years old, he spent a lot of time in hospitals. This is his 5th surgery. The 2-month-old Jazz Ensemble Marketplace is also a job creator. 23 East St. Louis residents now work here. And there's good news concerning pitcher Danny Cox, who will rejoin the team tomorrow after pitching 7 innings of shutout ball down in St. Petersburg today. Cox will be reactivated sometime in the next few days. So maybe you've noticed that goats are having a moment. Between viral videos and commercials, goats are hot.
So dignified. Our next speaker knows Art Holliday better than any of us because he's known him longer than any of us. And tonight he's here to share what only a brother can, and hopefully nothing that'll get anyone sued. Please welcome the man who's had a front row seat to 70+ years of Art Holliday, and he still showed up tonight, his brother Clyde Holliday.
This is all right. Yes, I've known Art for quite some time. I met him when he was about 2 days old, and it's been exciting. It's funny now, listening to all the excerpts and speeches that have come up. I had notes written, I just threw them away. But Art was a nice little kid, and Mom used to say, telling Austin and myself, he had written something in school and he was doing pretty well. So we kind of, if we had known that this was like a precursor to what he's doing now, we probably would have clapped hands for him back then. We said, Mom, he's in the 2nd grade. But it's been a lot of years, and it doesn't seem like it's been that many years. I remember when he was running around here, and I had gone to school. I came back from Orange. All of a sudden, that 10-year-old kid was driving a car and talking stuff. And then he goes away to Mizzou, and then he goes down to Oklahoma, and then he comes back here. And then Channel 5 was the station in the household. And so many people, aunts, uncles, and that knew him when he was a little bitty kid. We're so happy. My dad had 4 brothers that lived in St. Charles. They all watched. We're all proud of him. He's done so many things that are memorable to us. Got a lot of family here now. Just seeing the admiration, the laughter, the people telling about things that he's done, it makes me feel good. And I know somebody that probably knows more about him in so many ways than myself. I think her name is Linda.
I know you are scared.
I am terrified.
Because I don't do this. You professionals, you do it all the time, but if there was ever a time to stand up and really congratulate your husband for the wonderful job that you've done with KSDK in the community all around for 46 years, my God, that's a long one. And I also want to thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming out to help us honor Art. It's really good to see, and he deserves it. Especially after all of those years. You deserve everything you're getting here tonight. Everything, even Kim's little conversation about all those things, Mike's jabs, you deserve them all. So I hope you enjoy yourself tonight. No, so, and the people who put on this event, this is amazing, so thanks again. But I'm not here to talk about his career, although it was wonderful, all of those things. I want to talk a little bit about Art, the person, the man. So, 42 years. And Tony, I might need your help on this. Maybe even Kelly. So, I meet Art at the club. So, and I'm not talking about Sam's Club. I'm talking about club. So we meet, and he's just this nice guy. I've tried to find other words to say, but just a nice guy. And in that circumstance, you can run into some jerks, So I'm seeing this guy, and I thought, okay, he's very nice. I think I'll go over and make that first move, because I could tell he was shy, and he probably wouldn't do it. And then I talked to one of my friends, and she said, are you dating that clean-cut guy from Channel 5? I heard you're dating him. Man, tell me more about him. So we hit it off, obviously, and things progressed. We got married a few years after that, after meeting, and then we welcomed our daughter into our lives after 5 years of marriage, and things have just been great. And I know, Mike, it's a roast, but...
You do what you want.
And she will.
Yeah.
So one of the things that,
really held my interest was Art's kindness. And that's true from long ago up to today. So he's just a very kind person. And when I said we welcomed a daughter into our lives, and we were equal partners from day one in our relationship. Art supported my career so much, and I supported him, and we kind of pushed each other. I was preparing for an interview one time, and I think you'll remember this. I was totally stressed. Everybody knew I was stressed. But he could tell, and he kind of made this mixed tape. Is that what they called it back then? It was a cassette. So, anyway, he put together some music, and it was just wonderful. And I didn't know he was doing this. I was, again, stressing about the job interview. And I got in my car the next day on my way to the interview, popped the tape, saw this tape, popped it in, and the first song was Simply the Best. Tina Turner's song. You know, Kelly, you can sing it better than all the rest. The next word's better than all the rest. And I thought, oh, this is so nice and considerate. And that's all I really wanted to tell you guys tonight, is that what you see is what you get. Art is a genuine person. He's been that way from day one. Someone mentioned Girl Dad, and all of those responsibilities, shared partnership, going to all of those basketball games, volleyball, softball. What didn't you play? And it was just great to have that type of partner. And for 42 years, that's a long time. And that's what it takes, is that type of partnership. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do next. You won't do it at home. It won't. It won't be with me. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, that was a zinger at the end there, Art.
You have no idea.
Well, as we've been saying, he's been a sports guy, a news anchor, a morning show legend, a news director. Somehow he's still sane. For 46 years, Art Holliday has been the calm in the chaos, a steady voice in the newsroom. He's smart, he's thoughtful, respected, and soon officially retired. Please welcome the man of the hour, Art Holliday.
I've been trying to hold it together tonight. I'm not going to lie. This is a lot. I was told I have 10 minutes to talk. 46 years is a lot to cover, so it might take more time than that. I hope you brought a snack. By the time this evening ends, you will realize that I like to rhyme. So before we talk about me, let's talk music for a second. I'll bet I'm not the only music fan here tonight. Raise your hand if you love St. Louis music. Come on. Okay. A lot of music history in the 314, right? Chuck Berry, Johnny Johnson, rocked Maybelline. You Never Can Tell, Sweet Little 16. When Chuck Duck walked, teens understood Roll Over Beethoven and Johnny Be Good. Birth of the Cool became kind of blue, and Miles Davis played, it kept sounding new. Bebop to hard bop, fusion to hip hop. Miles had the key and jazz was unlocked. Rolling on the River with Ike and Tina. Tonight Show's Clark Terry, No Trumpet Was Meaner. Grant Green, Lou Donaldson played all that jazz. Rescue Me sang Fontella Bass. Albert King and Henry Townsend play the blues for you. Josephine Baker, How You Do What You Do. The Gateway City, Always Summertime Sweatin'. Michael McDonald, He Keeps Forgetting. All Cheryl wants to do is have some fun. I've got a feeling she's not the only one. Nellie's like, good gracious, the Lou is bodacious, the music is so outrageous. Get up on the dance floor, give the 314 what we asking for. David Sanborn brought Saxy back. Tell Billy Peake to go grab his axe. Donny Hathaway was gone too soon, but he left behind so many great tunes. Sweet singing SZA from St. Louis streets. Metro Boomin' keeps dropping bomb beats. Watch out for the cheater, Bob Cuban's advice, because St. Louis music is colder than ice. Are you finished name dropping? Not really. Scott Joplin was the king of ragtime. The entertainer was popping. Up, up, and away, sang the Fifth Dimension. St. Louis music, always grabbing attention. I like to rhyme. It has been a July to remember. This event tonight, I celebrate my 71st birthday on Thursday. I retired July 30. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. In early August, I get a Career Achievement Award in Cleveland at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. I have had a nice run, and I'm tremendously honored and equally uncomfortable for all of this attention I've been getting the last few months. This has really been a lot to process, because it's hard out here for an introvert. Shout out to my longtime colleague, Sonia Potter, who organized tonight's event. How about a round of applause? Whenever KSDK has a big project, who are you going to call? It ain't Ghostbusters. It's Sonia, and we keep her on speed dial. Sonia, thank you very much. My general manager, Alicia Elsner, wasn't taking no for an answer when I was hesitant about having this roast. Once I heard the word roast, all I could think of was how uncomfortable Tom Brady looked during his roast. I suggested a big cocktail party with loud music where we got hammered and then called Uber. But thank you, Alicia, for insisting that I deserve this. So I invited some of my friends tonight. Rick Gievers is in the house. Rick, stand up and let people see you, please. Without Rick, there is no Art Holliday at Channel 5, and you all would be watching Netflix tonight. So let's turn on the Wayback Machine. 1979, I'm on a flight from Tampa to Oklahoma City after a successful Florida job interview. I was 24 years old, and at the top of my bucket list at the time was warm weather city by the water. So in my mind, I'm already packing shorts and flip-flops for my next job at the NBC station in Tampa. Young, single, hanging at the beach. Shortly after I arrived home in Oklahoma City, where I was working, I get a phone call from a producer at KSD-TV. It was Rick, my journalism school classmate, who made a life-changing phone call to me. If you want to come home to St. Louis, Jay Randolph and Ron Jacober are looking for a weekend sportscaster. Well, that phone call changed everything. Rick traveled from Indianapolis with his wife, where he occasionally invites me to Indiana Pacer games, an increasingly hot ticket in the NBA. Rick, thank you for being a great friend for, I guess, 51 years? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Larry Gendler. Where's my man Larry? Where are you at? Okay, in the back. I met Larry during the best college summer I ever had. We were summer orientation leaders at Mizzou, and it quickly became obvious that we made each other laugh, and that was the beginning of another 51-year friendship. Larry came in from Omaha. Larry, thank you, man. Alan Roach, you asked me if I was going to have you speak tonight. No, but I'm going to talk about you. So I've known Alan since middle school. We were high school teammates in football and basketball. Alan, glad we stayed in touch all these years, man. Thank you for coming. You already heard from my man Kim Hibbs over here. Sports production assistant in the 80s. We became best friends. Best man at his wedding when he married Jan. One-on-one Productions, our company. We worked several years on Today in St. Louis. I mean, there was a period of time when directly behind me was one of my best friends, Kim, and to the left of me was Jennifer Blome, who became a great friend and professional partner, and that was probably maybe the highlight of that period of time when those two were both on the show, at least for me. And as Kim mentioned, he built our retirement home 3 years ago. I mean, he built a hell of a house, so I'm just saying, if you're looking for a home builder, talk to this guy. If you have longtime friends in your life who make you laugh and have your back, you are rich. Izzy, stand up. Stand up, young man. So, 6 years ago, I volunteered to be a big for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Israel Westbrook, AKA Izzy the filmmaker, was 12 when we met, and now he's going to college. It was a great match because we're both filmmakers. So if you see Izzy on your way out tonight when the event's over, please encourage this young man to nurture his creativity and chase his dreams. And by the way, if any of you here want to make a difference in our community, I encourage you to participate as a mentor for Big Brothers Big Sisters. There is always a waiting list for young people who desire bigs to spend time with them and guide them into adolescence and adulthood. Heidi Glaus. Jennifer Blome and I encouraged and coached Heidi when she was an intern, who became a production assistant, who became a reporter, who became a host, who became a radio star, and she calls Jennifer and me her television parents. And I know a lot about being a proud parent. Ask my daughter. Heidi, proud to have played a role in jump-starting the inevitable. And if your last name is Holliday, stand up. Most likely we are related. My fam is here supporting me the way they always have. And as I said earlier, in '79, I had 2 job offers, Tampa and St. Louis, and there were 3 tipping points for choosing St. Louis: covering the Cardinals and Austin and Cleo, my late parents in St. Charles. I completely underestimated how much joy they got from watching my career at KSDK. So I feel like I gave them a gift by choosing St. Louis over Tampa. I miss my parents. I tried to make them proud. I'm pretty sure they were. So let's talk about how I wound up with 5 different careers at KSDK. Spoiler alert, it was not a master plan to stay 46 years. The first 13 years of my career, I became a pretty good sportscaster. 2 Best Sportscaster Emmys. Good enough that the news director at WABC in New York contacted me and asked for an audition tape of my work. Unfortunately, the news director who thought I might be good enough to work in the #1 television market got fired. So that kept me in St. Louis. 1990, unbeknownst to me, Bob Costas recommended me to NBC Sports to be a sideline reporter for the NBA. For my 2 auditions, I worked college basketball games with play-by-play superstars Marv Albert and Dick Enberg. NBC hired Ahmad Rashad. So that kept me at KSDK. And by the way, remember the Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance? They kept showing Ahmad Rashad hanging out with Michael Jordan because they became best friends. I could have been Michael Jordan's best friend. Now, this was all around the time my KSDK general manager, Bill Bolster, for some reason, decided that I should turn the page on sports to become a morning news anchor. He wanted me to be Jennifer Blom's new partner. He insisted it was my decision, that I didn't have to say yes just because he was my boss. I'm surprised he didn't wink at me when he said that. Now, have you ever had a boss that's scary? Bill Bolster was a scary guy. And I remain convinced that I was dead man walking if I said no. So here's what we didn't know then about Art and Jennifer. Sometimes the magic happens. Sometimes you do strike gold. Sometimes you hit it out of the park. Chemistry is king in morning television. We had it, still can't explain it. It's like trying to explain electricity. Mostly we know when it works and when it doesn't. Jennifer and I worked. 22 years on Today in St. Louis. Scott Connell was with us for 19 of those years. We became a 3-headed morning monster. Highest local ratings in the nation, more than once. Our sales department turned down advertisers even after we increased the length of our commercial breaks. Good problem to have. But nothing lasts forever. Fox 2 finally caught us. KSDK decided to move me to reporter. Let's say it wasn't the easiest transition for me. Well, let's keep it real. No one wants to hear that if they're replaced, the newscast is going to be better. What I didn't know then, I know now. I learned that things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Sometimes opportunity comes in a brilliant disguise, as Bruce Springsteen sang. But you have to be tuned into the possibility that your lowest moment is the beginning of the comeback. TV news is a tough, full contact business with emotional bumps and bruises. Just like The Godfather, my demotion was not personal, it was business. So, I did my job. I kept it professional, I kept my mouth shut. I resisted the siren song of getting even. Because had I become that toxic wrecking ball that I fantasized about, I wouldn't be here tonight. Because I would have burned bridges and probably damaged my reputation. So years later, I realized that leaving Today in St. Louis led to years of street reporting, which made me a good enough reporter to eventually join our new storytelling unit, where my writing and creativity stood out and allowed me to tell 2 cool, interesting stories a week. Everything from goat yoga to a local Marine whose first mission was the Battle of Mogadishu,
the firefight that later turned into the movie Black Hawk Down, which led to a struggle with depression and thoughts of suicide. All of which prepared me even more to become news director. So there's my 5 careers at KSDK: sportscaster, news anchor, general assignment reporter, storyteller, news director. Things happen for you, not to you, to make you better, to make you tougher, to improve your leadership, to force you to learn new skills, to teach you humility. Tennis legend Roger Federer said, "Negative energy is wasted energy. You want to become a master at overcoming hard moments." I had a hard moment at my first job in Oklahoma City, 1977. One day in the lunchroom, a salesman asked a question I've replayed many, many times. "Do you think you were hired because you're black?" The two of us had never spoken a single word before that question, and without knowing anything about me, that's how he saw me, a skin color and a token hire. They weren't calling it DEI yet. It still ticks me off all these years later because it's a pretty messed up microaggression for a 22-year-old. "Why don't you ask the news director?" I replied. "He hired me and I don't care why." But that rude question had an unintended consequence. That question became fuel. Success is always the best revenge against people who doubt you or disrespect you. Things don't happen to us, they happen for us. Now I realize how much of a motivator that question was. And I have fantasized so many times about a do-over conversation with that salesman. "Do you think you were hired because you're black?" So my revenge fantasy is doing a Goodwill Hunting on his ass. One of my favorite movie scenes is in Goodwill Hunting when Matt Damon verbally destroyed the snarky Ivy League know-it-all at a college bar. Bam! Will Hunting bangs on the glass with a piece of paper in his hand containing the phone number of the girl both men were trying to impress. "I got her number. How do you like them apples?" So in my fantasy do-over, I would explain to that salesman that I worked my butt off at the University of Missouri, the first journalism school in the world, where I was an undergraduate teaching assistant and years later was asked to deliver 2 commencement addresses and receive 2 Distinguished Alumni Awards. I have 2 Best Sportscaster Emmys. I have awards for mental health reporting. I was part of a 22-year anchor team with the highest ratings in the nation. I'm in 3 Halls of Fame and 2 more are on the way. And I'm still black. How do you like them apples? To have a 50-year career, it's ridiculous to think that every moment is going to be rainbows and Jolly Ranchers. But on balance, there were way more highs than lows. I got to work with some of the most talented journalists in the business. I mean, working with Mike Bush is like being a teammate of Albert Pujols. You're in awe, and you're glad that he's on your side. In my hometown, I covered multiple World Series involving my favorite team, the Cardinals. I have a viral video with Vince Coleman, and because of it, he mentioned me by name during his Red Jacket Hall of Fame speech. I covered the Rams Super Bowl win, the Blues Stanley Cup run. I interviewed people who used to be president and wanted to be president. I talked to rock stars and comedians and actors and movie directors and world-class athletes and everyday people doing interesting and important things. And all the while, I learned how much I love writing and how glad I am that journalism found me. When I transferred to Mizzou as a sophomore, I didn't know about the journalism school's reputation. So is it a miracle that I wound up at exactly the place I needed to be to start the journey for an amazing career? Maybe, probably.
I missed writing and telling stories the past 4+ years when I moved into management, but I was asked to serve the newsroom in a different way. And I did, because it's what I've always done. Put the needs of the newsroom first and try to make my bosses look good. It wasn't always about me. Often it was about we. So if there is an Art Holliday legacy that lives on at KSDK, I hope it's that I put the newsroom and the community ahead of my own dreams and desires and occasional hurt feelings. A few years ago, I heard an interview in which an aging movie director was asked about what he wanted to accomplish in his remaining years. His response was a 7-word rhetorical question that inspired this poem. How many summers do I have left? 15, 20? That's a question with heft. Time is deceptive, it's slow, then it's fast. Before you know it, the future is past. Baldness, wrinkles, and scars symbolize a life that's been lived, all the lows and the highs. Finding joy in your life, that's the fountain of youth. Loving and laughing and searching for truth. As you get older, you start to reflect. Did you influence lives? Did you really connect? Did you ever inspire, light someone's fire, lift people higher before you retire? I now have less time to make my mark, to right my wrongs, to light up the dark. Time's running out to get it right, to stand up for something, keep fighting the fight. Time always teaches that each day is a gift not to be wasted, but used with great thrift. Keep having birthdays until you cannot. You only live once, better shoot your best shot. As the hourglass flows, I look forward and back. I still have some dreams before fading to black. Father Time is a burglar. Years are the theft. How many summers do I have left? That poem certainly resonates with someone 2 days from turning 71. However many summers I have left, and I hope there's a lot of them, people keep asking, what am I going to do after retiring? I will write a lot more. I will probably rhyme some more. I will work on 2 documentary projects. I will finish my first screenplay. I'm working on a book of original photos and poems. I may have a photography exhibit one day, and I'll invite all of you. Most importantly, I will try really, really, really hard not to get on my wife's last nerve. Lou Brock was a childhood hero. When the Cardinals Hall of Fame outfielder retired, he said, I've always wanted to orchestrate my own exodus, and I've done a pretty good job of it. I love that line and hoped I'd get to use it one day. To paraphrase number 20, after 46 years at KSDK, I orchestrated my own exodus after doing a pretty good job of it. I feel fortunate to have had a 50-year career that meant something to me, meant something to my TV news team, meant something to the community. Thank you, St. Louis, for allowing a 20-something kid from St. Charles to come home, make his mistakes on live TV, and grow into a 50-year journalism career. #blessed.
Art, there's a glass right next to you. You can lift it up. So before we call it a night, we want to raise a glass and toast the man we came to celebrate. To do that, here's our general manager of KSDK, Alicia Elsner.
Very uncomfortable for me. All right, if you worked at KSDK from 1979 to present, raise your hand. Let's just show how massive a following and what an impact this man has had. So this toast I am making on your behalf. Please
Please raise your glasses to Art Holliday, a man who didn't just work in St. Louis television, but became part of its very soul. 46 years in an industry where careers are measured in Nielsen books or seasons, but in your case, my friend, it's been measured in decades. When NBC or the network or much larger markets came calling for you, as you just said, you stayed here. You chose home, you chose us. For 22 years, he and the wonderful Jennifer Blow became as familiar, sorry, I'm really shaking, because I thought I was gonna need my glasses, sorry. As familiar as morning coffee and toast in all of St. Louis. Art understood that serving our beloved St. Louis community isn't just a job, but it's rather a calling. So to Art, thank you for 46 years of excellence, loyalty, and pride of place. If you did not hear that in that speech, you have pride of place. You didn't just tell St. Louis stories, you became one yourself. You are a true St. Louis treasure.
To Art Holliday. And thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate your attendance.